What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show, dedicated to the craft, a podcast brought to you by Ballast Brewing Company. I'm your host, Jeff LOZANO. Check this out. Can you see that? For all of you that are just listening, go and check out our new Legion Lager, the official craft beer of the San Diego Legion rugby team. That's what the show is all about. We sit down with Ryan Patterson, Joe Pieterson, and Chris Bradley, and we talk all things rugby and our relationship that we're building with the San Diego Legion. I am a newfound rugby fan. Building up to this episode, I watched a lot of rugby matches, San Diego Legion specific, and it's one of those sports that I've been sleeping on for a long time. I'm sure a lot of people have been sleeping on this sport for a long time. Just listen to this episode to get a really good understanding of who the San Diego Legion is, what our relationship is going to be with them, and just what the game is all about. I like that they jumped into philosophy a little bit more than anybody else that I've talked rugby with. So it was an awesome episode, and I'll see you all at a game, because as soon as you listen to this, you're going to want to be season ticket holders. But before we get to the episode, I just want to remind everybody that the Legion Lager is the official craft beer of the San Diego Legion, and any televised San Diego Legion games you can catch at a Ballast Point location. We're going to be playing them in our tap rooms when they're televised, and San Diego Legion Lager will be on tap all season long. You can find it starting this Thursday, leading into this weekend, and it's just a good beer. It's Longfin, and we repackaged Longfin for the San Diego Legion, and it's just a perfect rugby watching beer. Please go check it out. Please follow San Diego Legion and learn more about rugby. On another note, why don't you go and follow Cast and Crank Podcast? We recently had Brendan Waters, our CEO, talking all things SoCal fishing on Cast and Crank Podcast. Really awesome episode. Check it out. Follow, like, subscribe. Cheers. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thanks for jumping on.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
All right. Look, we don't have a full 80 minutes on this show, so we're gonna get this out of the way. Let's do it right now. This is a beer drinking podcast, gentlemen. And listen. Most of the time, cheers, everybody. Cheers. Most of the time, I tell everybody to pour their beer out into a glass, because so you can see the clarity and all the things that the brewers want to showcase. Not with this beer, not with this brand spanking new one, because the artwork on this can is by far one of the coolest pieces of packaging that we've ever done here at Ballast Point. And for everybody that's just listening, we're holding up our new Legion Lager, which is our Ballast Point and the San Diego Legion rugby team's collaborative beer. And Paul Elder outdid himself with this one. The artwork is cool. 16-ounce cans, which I think that's a perfect boot. You can drink it, you can pour it into a boot perfectly, and then you can slam it right after the show. So hey, listen, I'm really excited about the show because we're letting everybody know about the beautiful relationship that we're forging. And a lot of people don't know, one, too much about rugby, but two, where, all this hype and it's building and all of this momentum that it's garnering. So I kind of want everybody to get after this episode a good sense of where the team's going and where we're all going in the rugby world. But first, Chris Bradley, the king and kings of convicts. I wanted to toss it over to you first, because a lot of people know Brendan, and he does a lot of TV and media stuff, but you don't do too much. And so it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, but I want you to talk a little bit about who you are, the kings and convicts, and how you got together with Ballast Point, and then where rugby fits into your life.
Sure. That's a lot of different topics in one go.
Yeah, but, it's all good.
As the intro, I'm the king half of the Kings and Convicts, the quieter Englishman, which for those that know a few Australian friends, that's not exactly a big step off from Brendan. He's the outgoing side. We started Kings and Convicts 5 years ago now in Highwood, and we did basically every job going through from brewing to selling and distributing between us. But 18 months ago, when the Ballast Point opportunity came up, that was a bit of a change. So in terms of Ballast Point, I spend the time on the operations side, on the brewing, the beer, and leave the sales and marketing side more to the Brendan Waters of this world, the convict. And but the big thing was the move to San Diego, and the tie-in here was one of the very first things I did when I moved over here last January was go and watch these guys play a preseason game out at the Houston. And it brings back a few memories. It's been a while since I played, but it's a big tie-in to what I've done around the world. And so being in San Diego, the first thing we wanted to do was look at how we can get more involved. And that's where Ryan and the guys come in. So a little bit of a background.
Right. And so Ryan, you link up with Chris. You guys have obviously this connection with rugby. And why don't you let everybody know what you do for the team and really the leap of faith that you took and the commitment that you took being a part of the Legion log, or building the Legion rather.
Well, as Chris pointed out, that's a lot in one mouthful. So in terms of meeting Chris and the guys, it was interesting as they got into the community, more and more people, they were meeting more people and getting identified, and more people kept coming to me and saying, you've really got to meet this Chris guy and Chris and Brendan. We just met them here, we met them there, and different people were saying, you got to introduce yourself. And so, everybody said that we were going to link us up, but Chris ended up coming to this preseason game to watch it. And that's where we first really got a chance to meet each other and talk about beer and see the love of rugby unfold. He was excited to see Ma at the time. I don't know if you remember that, Joe, back at the little queue. But Legion's life started about 4 years ago. Professional rugby had kind of started in the United States, and we had an opportunity to have a franchise here in San Diego. And as you said, the leap of faith, it's not a leap of faith when you look at the dynamics behind rugby. It's an amazing game with a fast pace and everything that America should like, but it's not watched that much in America, but 800 to 1 billion people watch it around the world. It seemed like, hey, wait a minute, there's an opportunity to actually just bring this here at such an aspirational level that we hadn't created yet. And take that opportunity and make a professional league out of stuff that is something that people are passionate about all across the planet. So that was really the underlying goal, is that there's this opportunity here where so many other people across the world love this game, and I wanted to bring it back here to the United States. And I've seen it do what it does for my kids who play it, and have been playing it for the last 12 years, and that's how I got involved.
No, it's crazy. It's crazy the amount of traction that it's gaining, and it's just after watching so many games leading up to this conversation, because I was not a rugby fan, but notice how I said I was not.
Yes.
It's just it's so captivating, brother. And I want to get a little bit more to the game and our relationship, but that's amazing that now it's becoming such a popular thing in a place like the United States, and like 2020, where what is it, like 11 teams? Is that something? Is that where we're at right now?
11 teams playing, 13 total. Sorry, 12 teams playing, 13 total. Dallas decided with COVID this was their first year. They're going to wait. So we're 12 teams in this year. We were one of the original 7 here in San Diego that took that leap of faith that you mentioned. But yeah, we continue to grow and look at new markets, and the sport continues to move from its fragmented sense to a more cohesive unit as we gain more fans and gain more presence.
Oh, and that's going to happen, man. The cohort. Those guys
are amazing.
Are they taking applications, man? So
super
that's
fans.
Yeah, they're super fans, and they're a bunch of fun. Follow them on Instagram, and they're just wild. But so now, Joe, you're on the team. Joe Pieterson, you're a rugby lifer, and you've been playing for a long time. You're a man of many passions, from the outdoors, wilderness, to rhino preservation and all the work that you and your team are doing in South Africa. First off, your position on the team and what got you into rugby in the first place?
Well, I'd love to say beer, but I started quite young. Where I'm from, and I think that's where Ryan is also leading to. I think there's one of the very last places or frontiers to really push rugby in the world would be America. And where I'm from, South Africa, you kind of grow up with a rugby ball under your arm, and that's kind of your go-to. That's what you do at break time at school. That's what you do after school, before school, and that's kind of your that's kind of the way we grow up. And you know it organically grows into more participation, and if you develop a skill and you have a bit of talent, it potentially is something that you play your whole school career, and then you know, for the more passionate and lucky few, it becomes a career. And then in South Africa, it's quite a big pool of people playing rugby, so competition is big. And it's something that we look into, you know, into the American market, and you just look at the amount of numbers from a support infrastructure, just everything that you have here. And most importantly, I hope it doesn't sound wrong, but the specimens, there are athletes here. So
yeah,
this place should be a powerhouse in rugby globally.
Well, that's interesting, because one of the things that Legion, or at least what I see ever since I started following the Legion and following your news, is that you're putting a lot of effort into acquiring amazing players. It's you are bringing in so many new guys with so much talent very regularly. What's the strategy there?
I like to think that I don't know if that was to Joe or to me, but
both, anybody.
I think it's a combination, actually. We brought in, we think, top class, world class talent, people who have a skill and experience set that'll help develop younger players here nationally. That's the goal, is to build a balance. You know, we're not just here trying to put, you know, only the best team on. We want to build up rugby in the US, either directly through youth and academy programs, or just having the players on the field like Aaron. You know, Aaron Mitchell's a great example. He's a hometown kid, and he's developing really, really well. And he's developing because he's playing with guys who have all this international experience. So the whole goal is to continue to grow American rugby side by side. And we think doing that is by putting it with the best competition, the best people.
I mean, that's amazing. Joe, how do you feel about being, I mean, because you're a veteran. In fact, you've alluded to in some of your interviews that you're always last season, right? Always the last season since you were 31. Just 2 more seasons. Now that you see this influx of talent and you being part of this beautiful cohesive team, what is it like for you being part of the spearheading of the popularity of rugby in the United States?
I think it's a massive privilege for us as foreign players, you know, you don't want to say trailblazers because there's been a competition before, but to be part of a circle of people that can come in and play and still actively be involved in whichever way, you know, whether it's rugby, whether it's off the field, drinking a beer, talking about cultures in different countries, and the way rugby culture is kind of very similar across the board. If you compare South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, England, Ireland, the Europes. So I think that getting that through, as well as the transfer of, let's call it rugby IQ or the skill set, and not necessarily that I see myself as someone that's highly skilled, but potentially I've been around for the past 10, 15 years around players who are world-class players and who have played, you know, in World Cup finals and has consistently represented their country. So there's quite a lot of shoulder rubbing and skills and intellectual property that rubs off because of that environment. And that's obviously the hope that we obviously then hope to transfer into this new environment. And then, as Ryan said, to young guys who has the talent, who has the infrastructure, the availability of a competition now, and all you then need is the continuous building on the skill set.
That's amazing that you are, like you said, you won't use the word, but I'll use it, trailblazing, because it's a very small subset of teams that are making up what's going to end up becoming a 100% of the popularity here in the United States. Now, Chris, I only have so much bandwidth for sports. I kind of limit it to American football and MMA. I really don't have a lot of other sports that I can give my time and become a super fan of. But after talking to Chris and hearing him talk about the game and then watching the Legion matches, my wife is like, what just happened? Yesterday you weren't watching it, and now that's all you're playing. And and I was like, these are the kind of things that make me scratch my head about why it's barely gaining popularity here, because it's such a fascinating game. And Chris, now that we're in a relationship with the Legion, and we're making this beautiful, tasty beer. By the way, this is an amazing beer. Anything that goes down this smooth is a perfect sports beer. But Chris, what were your hopes, and what is the future like for in your mind with Ballast Point and being associated with something like the Legion?
Well, I mean, one of the things is I've been in the US for nearly 20 years now, and spent a lot of that time trying to convert Americans into enjoying rugby. And when I say trying, it's not actually difficult. The biggest challenge is getting people to see top class rugby firsthand. And so whether it's friends or with work, always taking people to the All Blacks playing the US team in Chicago a few years back. Sevens is a huge one. And I found that anyone who gets to watch it live and gets to watch at a high level loves the sport. And I played at a much lower level than Joe, but I played in a number of countries. And rugby's a global sport. And you see it whether it's at the Seven Stadium in Vegas, where there's fans and groups, whether it's from Kenya, from France, Samoa, and there's rivalries, but it's a lot of fun. And I played on teams in the UK and in New Zealand that had players from all over the world. So Joe made the point that within the teams, it's very consistent. It's just being part of a rugby team. So the objective really was anything I can do and anything we can do that helps to get more people to watch, more people to engage. It's great for the sport, but it's also great for the local environment. And a big thing, our number one objective with Ballast Point when we came on board was to reconnect locally in San Diego. And what better way to do it than with true local teams? And with what Ryan and the team have been doing to engage at a level with kids and supporting the growth, it wasn't really a decision. It's just an easy sort of next step for what we can do.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ryan. I noticed that a lot of what the Legion is doing is supporting the youth. You alluded to it earlier, and a lot of the footage that I see are just the stands. At least previous to the pandemic, there was stands, but there were so many kids, there were so many families, there was so much interest from there was so much interest into the sport, but from almost like a family unit. Something that I noticed about what you guys are doing with the Legion that I don't really see too much or too often in the other ones. There was this, we went as a family to watch the game, and it wasn't this individualistic, I have my team. It was like our family supports this. How do you feel about being such a welcoming sport for the family unit dynamic?
Well, I think that goes to rugby first off. I mean, as we talked about, as what you noted, we spent a lot of time making sure that the Legion players got out and started talking to the teams, the youth teams, and either providing direct coaching or helping coaches, so that we created an identity in with all of the various clubs that are around San Diego. And San Diego's done a great job of creating clubs. It's probably one of the most heavily invested in communities from a rugby standpoint. I think that has a little bit to do with getting a lot of foreign nationals here who all love the sport. But there's, I want to say, 1,500 kids playing rugby in the greater San Diego area, which, lends itself to the families. And we reached out, and those were our first people that we wanted to make contact with. And so that identification with the kids being there and getting to see their coach out on the field, which was awesome for them. Just absolutely awesome to have them sit there and shout for, no offense to Joe, but for Ryan Mattias. And so, and that's my coach, and being a part of that. And then the biggest thing from there is that they get to go down on the field. No professional sports lets you go down and actually shake hands with a Padre or a Charger or, a Pittsburgh Steeler. It just doesn't happen anymore, right? That disconnect between fan and the athlete. Here, it's right there. It's live, and the energy is amazing. I mean, I saw Ma, who's as famous as anyone, probably one of the best rugby players, sit there and take 100 photos and shake hands with, 1,000 kids, over the time he was here. And Joe has put in so much time, with all of the various kids and all of the players doing the same thing, the smiles and the energy. It's a family atmosphere. It's one of the few places where I saw kids being able to run around. Remember that when we were kids, your parents would let you run around, go somewhere, you can go through the stadium, you can go do these things. That doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it's an environment that just doesn't exist. And so that was part of the passion part of it that made me go, we can bring this to another level. We can bring this to it. We can take what's happened at the youth levels, at the academy, at the high schools and the colleges. We can bring this to a professional level, maintain that family spirit and community, and be, a premier athletic club and still keep that piece. Then that's a winning recipe.
Because I really wanted to ask Joe, your involvement in the game and the passion that I've heard you in other interviews that bleeds into your everyday life. That's something pretty powerful that you don't really hear about. I mean, everybody has this transcendental moment with the sport that they're involved in and how it affects their lives. But it seems to have affected your life in bigger ways, right? You're doing a lot of conservation work, and as you're kind of at the tail end of your rugby career, you're going full throttle, full blast into South African preservation and wildlife. Tell us a little bit about that.
Look, as you've said, I've been at the end of my career for a long time. So
10 years.
So let's just say allegedly. I kind of just take it, play it by beer, and then obviously, I think the best thing for me is to look for something after rugby. The first thing I looked at was something that involved a team and also the beer drinking activity, and it's something that it's hand in hand with most cultures and not just rugby culture, because it's a very big thing in America as well. Since we're having this chat, and if you really look at the basics of rugby, then what does it boil down to? We're playing quite a physical game to get thirsty. You don't reward someone with an orange juice. So it is, whether you like it or not, whether you're World Cup champions or regional champions, beer is always in the equation. You don't win cups on orange juice. There is going to be a beer in there somewhere. So, and rugby.
All right.
Back to your original question. I just want to make sure that I get the beer stuff in, because as fun as this is and as good as the branding is, without going overboard, it is really also part of rugby culture.
Well, real quick, I don't want to segue too much, because I do want to get to your preservation work. But what is it about beer that has ingrained itself so much and so fundamentally into the fabric of rugby?
Well, I think if we go back to where rugby started, it's if you look at the pub culture in Europe, or call it the UK rather, if you look at the pub culture, and that's where families meet, that's where, and I'm not talking about abusing any alcohol. I'm talking about the casual, almost atmosphere around a casual drink, and the pub environment and the stadium environment. And as Ryan said, the involvement of players being part of the actual crowd. That across the world, if you're playing for South Africa, the All Blacks, Legion, French team, whatever, after a game, there's going to be someone on the field. You're going to shake hands. You're going to walk over to the crowd. There's always a blend in, and at some stage, the lines are blurred between team and crowd. And I think that's also a massive part of what rugby is. It brings people together. We had someone before said it's almost like for the everyday person that struggles to get through the week. You're rewarded at the end of the week is a rugby game and a bit of fun, with the people in the crowd. You get to shout a few inappropriate things to people. The guys have a go at each other. And the moment the whistle blows, it's over. And then it returns to being a very gentleman-like agreement where respect is very much the departure point of rugby, where you can smash the hell out of me on the field. The moment we step off the field, it just goes into banter. And then it's good fun. And most often, it's around a beer. So I think that kind of casual vibe that rugby brings to someone's life, and just the fun environment that beer creates in general, giving rugby players courage, giving the guys in the stand a bit more courage to make it. They shouldn't have yelled. So I think it's a really hand in hand. One hand washes the other. The more beer people drink, the better the crowd supports the team.
Right.
The more beer guys have in the off season, and obviously controlled amounts. Just a disclaimer there. Obviously, the team culture is quite strong because the guys have something more than just being part of a team. They've got a brotherhood. It's kind of like you're kind of cementing your friendships within the team just over a casual beer. Once training is done over the weekend in the off season. So I think it really ties in well, and I think it really carries a lot of weight, obviously, looking in today's world without anything excessive.
What a beautiful parallel that you've drawn between sport, specifically rugby, but sport in general, and what we do here at Ballast Point, which is trying to bridge, trying to find a common ground, right? A commonality, something that we can share, so that when we sit down and talk about all the things that we don't share, we at least have this one thing that we can break the ice with, or whatever. And the stadium for a lot of people, and for me, has been your local tavern at the same time. And the message that you are building right now with the Legion ties in very, very synonymously to the message that we're trying to build here at Ballast Point. What do you think about that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think is awesome about rugby is the fact that it's all the way from grassroots. I mean, you play in the UK with teams, and there's 7 teams and 100 odd players every week turning up. It's the social element at the end of the day. But I have the experience of getting off a plane and going to New Zealand and turning up in a small farm town, having been in the city of London. And within a week, you've got a bunch of guys you can hang out with and have a beer with.
Yeah.
And, get to know, because you've been on a rugby field, you've been on you train a couple of times, play a game, and it doesn't matter where you are. You're a rugby player, not just this English guy who turned up in the country in this weird place. But that is one thing that's the world over, whether it's in the US. That was one of the things that was a shame about living in Chicago, was there was no rugby team there in Major League Rugby yet, but I'm sure that'll resolve itself in the future.
We're working on it, Chris. We're working on it.
20 years ago, it was a bit different. I was still playing a little bit, but not anymore. But no, it ties in, and that's Ballast Point. We want to be approachable. Our brand is that it's beer for everybody. We're not just a niche or a small part of the world. We have beers, whether it's lagers and our Wahoo lighter ones, all the way through to the weird and wonderful that comes out of Little Italy. So we try and approach all with different offerings.
This Legion Lager is a perfect beer for what we're describing as rugby and the passion behind the game. It kind of, like, now that we're drawing parallels, it speaks to, like, it's raining right here in San Diego, and I feel like this is a perfect beer for the day. It could be sunny outside and I can be at the stands watching the Legion, and it's the perfect beer for that particular moment. It's
really
light,
drinkable.
It's
really
so drinkable. I'm kind of surprised. I mean, we made it, and I'm still like, what? This is really drinkable, and it is a beer that has been in our portfolio for a long time, and it's something that we've perfected. And so I'm glad that it's finding a home with the Legion Lager, because I'm telling you guys, I was watching this game, and the game kind of speaks to it kind of was. I was watching it from a very, very newbie stance, right? And so I was watching the teamwork. And Joe and Ryan, you and the three of you know this, but it's a different kind of dependency that you have on each other. Like, even from the line out, right, where you have to pick a guy up. It's the team gets together to lift up somebody to gain advantage. And it was one of these weird things where I started like, what other team really has that sentiment of, we're in this as a team, but literally we're picking up our teammates so that we can help us advance. I just thought it was a cool aspect of the game that you don't see in other sports, group sports and stuff like that, even from the scrum, right? Where anybody watching, where everyone's interlocking, trying to get the ball. It's an interlocking of teammates. You guys are so kind of intimate with each other's and in your positions that you literally depend on each other. Is that a cool or a fair way of assessing it?
That's a really
good example of what makes it's a differentiator or an extension of why this sport is both a good combination of all the other sports that we already know, right? I mean, it is the best of basketball because the passes are amazing. It's the best of kicking because if you've ever seen Joe kick to win a game, it's every bit as good as Beckham. And if you ever seen Ray Lewis hit somebody, the hits are just as amazing, right? So you have all of this, like every other sport, but there's all these other qualities that take it to another place. We'd already talked about getting together after the game. I mean, you don't see those guys get together. The teams go their different directions after every game, they get together for a beer. They enjoy a meal. That is part of the culture, right? In the game, you have the scrum, which you just described, right? The line out, all of these different things that have these unique times where you have to rely completely on someone else to move exactly like you're moving or do what you do. So in a way that doesn't exist any other place. It's not only about the athlete. And rarely does one athlete make a difference.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things is the rugby game, the play keeps going. I mean, through ruck and wall, so the team's got to work together as a unit, not as a pre-designed play. So that teamwork's critical.
It's insane. It never stops. The gas tank on you animals, because you're animals. You're this clashing of the titans, and the game doesn't stop. It's insane.
Yeah, I think it's a really good explanation given there by Ryan as well. It's kind of like all the sports that you guys are used to, but you don't have one guy in the team. Yes, we might have a Nonu that's a global superstar, but you don't have one guy in the team that kind of carries the team as an outcome, determining the outcome. Where a scrum and a line out is something that's it's premeditated, it's pre-practiced, but then once you get to something like defense, you have to work, you have to know someone's got my back, I've got someone else's back. And that, again, it comes into how's your relationship? How do you guys get along? How do you understand each other?
Yeah.
And going back to today's chat is, where do you discover those relationships? So spending time. And when you spend time with someone in a casual way, it's probably going to be a beer. So it's
yes.
There are so many similarities, and rugby, I think, should become a really popular sport in America. Based on this, you've got the collisions, you've got the physicality, you've got the brutality, you've got the continuous play. There's no break. Obviously, the ad space is a bit less if you compare it to the bigger games. But I think from an excitement point of view, before you know it, 80 minutes is over.
Yeah, it goes by in a flash.
I'm more excited about our relationship with Ballast Point, because when those guys bought it and we got a chance to sit down and talk about philosophy, which is really what cemented the relationship that you've been talking about. So the correlation that I'm bringing to is the relationships you keep talking about. I mean, when Chris and Brendan, and mostly Chris and I, got to know each other at a much deeper level, it was about the philosophy, right? Coming back in the art of the craft and being in the community that you're about to be in. That's all things Ballast Point wanted, and that's exactly what Legion was trying to accomplish at the same time. You guys have a much bigger brand, and this is an opportunity for you guys to help us expose more people to what we were trying to do, but also go back to your roots. So it's about relying on each other.
Yeah, and you guys we were able to literally go back to the roots. And one of the beautiful things about being the official craft beer for the San Diego Legion is that we brought a beer, Longfin, that's been such a just a good beer. It's just a perfect beer for a particular occasion, and rebuild a relationship with you, and we rebrand it because of it. And now we have this beautiful beer with awesome artwork that literally makes you want to drink the beer. I would have bought this not knowing even what it was, and I would have just drank it because the artwork is so legit, and it says Legion, San Diego Legion right on the can. I like the fact that the relationship was forged based on a philosophy. And the more that I hear about rugby, the more I watch it now, listening to you guys, I think that is going to catch like wildfire. And because it's a very interesting sport in that it has all of these similarities with things that we already know and understand. But for anybody that needs that little refresher course, now that we've all wet the whistle, let's give everybody a quick little rundown of what rugby actually is. Like, how do you score in rugby? Joe, how do you even score in rugby? What are we doing here?
You've got a few scoring methods. The most prized one is worth 5 points. It's called a try. So basically, you have to apply downward pressure with the ball behind the try line.
Okay.
So whether it's a dive, running over, putting it down, falling, driving over, and diving onto you must put the ball on the ground in a controlled way.
Think about it like a touchdown, but you actually have to touch the ball down, right, in some way.
It's more a touchdown than a touchdown.
Yeah,
yeah, you guys are fixing our game. No, I'm just...
yeah, so that's your main. So if you score, then you've got the option to add 2 points with a conversion kick. So in line with in line with wherever you put the ball down for your touchdown, for your try. You don't go to in front of the post. You go back to in line with however far you want, in line with that try. And from there, you can kick a conversion, which will then count 2 points. And then during the game, if there's an infringement from the other team, a penalty can be awarded. And then you've got the opportunity to kick at goal, which is a place kick off the ground. And that's worth 3 points. And then as the game, during the run of play, there's also the possibility of kicking a 3-point drop kick. So that's getting a ball from a pass, dropping it on the floor, and once it's bounced, you kick it. So that's the 4 main.
And you've done a lot of those. I saw your footage, man.
I've had a few. And then if you're a really dominant, and I think the rules will change, but if you're a really dominant scrum unit, then you can also scrum close to the goal line for consecutive penalties, which will eventually then end up in a penalty try, which is kind of a software to score.
Explain that real quick, because I think it's one of the more fascinating aspects of the game. The scrum, and then the ball gets kind of like pushed. You could be down, but the ball is still in play, making its way to a player that's going to be able to run with it. So yeah. I'm watching this as somebody that doesn't know rugby. I'm like, why is the ball not dead?
Yes. If you know my position, you'd know that I also don't know much about scrum, but
you know enough to stay away from it.
Yeah. I know it well enough to not venture that way. So basically, you've got 2 big pillars in the front with a guy, aptly named a hooker, between them, and then guys behind them pushing. So those guys engage with the other team. There's actually a little bit of communication between the guy putting the ball in the scrum and the guy hooking it. So usually when they bound up like this, the hooker, when he's ready, will just give a little tap, and then the 9, who's the guy putting the ball in, will then know that's my cue to put the ball in. And on that, the scrum would advance through a call. You can see I don't know much about this. Through a call, they'll advance to get the ball to the guy at the very back. And then depending on the pre-called move that is supposed to come from the set piece, the 8 either keeps it in to scrum to get dominance, to scrum for a penalty, to be able to kick the 3 points, or the ball would come out to the back line, to the guys, the smaller guys, the actual rugby players, the guys with skill at the back. And then from there they attack, and then it's game on.
Chris, how do you feel about what he just said?
Very spent most of my career at lock.
Yeah, Chris, what position were you in college?
So I played a mixture of number 8 and lock. I'm 6'5", which you don't see on Zoom, and when I got to play the position in the middle of the scrum, so when the ball was coming back through, the big thing in the scrum was if you have that dominance and control, that's when you can push the other team backwards, which causes to put the defense on the back line. But yeah, the whole purpose of being there is to create space for the backs to take all the credit.
Sour.
It looks intense. And one of the things that I was listening to, your players were describing it actually, was there's a strong technique and form inside the game, where for somebody in the stands, it might look like this just brute collision of forces. And sometimes it is, but there's so much technique that goes into the tackle that actually it's actually safer than American football tackling. Is that true?
I think that's a really good point. And again, coming to popularity and where it should grow to in this country, I think if you look at the typical way, and I'd never want to bash American football because I don't know much about it or enough about it to have a solid opinion. But I think from a rugby point of view, as a youngster, the first thing they teach you is to protect your head. So when you tackle, always make sure that you're tackling with your head on the outside. So you never fall on your head when you tackle, or you never have someone fall on your head. Your head is not exposed. Yes, there are collisions. Yes, there are times. Like when you're cleaning out a ruck, other people might clean you in your head. So there are times when you do have collisions on your head. But I think from a safety point of view, just in the tackle, it's way more controlled and way more practice. And that's why, again, if you look at my position, that's why you commonly find me at the back, not tackling.
Ryan, what do you think about that? Because I think that's important in this new information and data-driven world in the sports, in sports rather, where concussions are a big deal. Head trauma is a very important thing. You guys, you don't see too much of that in rugby, do you?
No, it's one of the safer sports, to be honest with you. So coming from the youth side, it's even more important. So as I said, my kids played, and the focus that we had on head trauma and player safety and how to tackle at a youth level was key. And you've seen that filter its way into the NFL. The Seattle Seahawks, who at that point, it actually happened about 4 or 5 years ago, they went to what they called hawk tackling, which is rugby tackling. And they were known as some of the most brutal hitters and most effective tacklers. You remember, that's when they won a Super Bowl. Their defense was amazing, and the way that they pursued and the way that they tackled was rugby tackling. And we've instituted that at the youth levels. We institute that at the pro level, so that it's all about, as Joe said, protecting the player. And I think we've done a good job overall in doing that. It's a collision sport. There's no way around that, but the collisions happen face on most of the time too. So there isn't these blindside hits that happen in the NFL.
Right.
So when you can see these things happening and unfold them, okay, even though I know I'm about to get hit by Chris, right, which I don't want to at 6'5", you can go down quickly. So
it's a very aesthetically, it looks like a very menacing sport. But once you start to talk more in depth about it, it becomes such a beautiful, safe way of playing a beautiful game, right? And I think that the more youth that starts to trickle into rugby because of that will then in turn develop a younger love for the game that will continue to grow into popularity here in the United States.
Yeah,
obviously, it's been doing that.
Who's played it, they love their kids playing it. That's what we've seen, and we take great care in coaching parents on how the safety part of it is too. As an American, I've been asked, how do you teach the sport? I mean, if you ask Joe, he's going to tell you what rugby is for that. And when you talk to Chris, rugby's rugby. I don't understand. I actually tell a lot of people it's tackle basketball. It is not football. It is not you're not trying to go get tackled. You're trying to create space and you're trying to offload. It's much more like running the lane, trying to draw defenders to you and pass the ball up. And so the idea isn't to get smashed unless you absolutely have to, right? I mean, you want the ball to flow if you're on the offense.
Well, isn't one of the rules that you can't tackle somebody that has the ball right in front of them? Or what was it? What's the rule on that? Like, I forgot what it. There's a particular rule.
Tackle, you can only tackle someone with the ball.
So, okay, that's right. Okay,
play the man. You can't play. Yeah.
My apologies. It's the other aspect, the other component. That everybody that doesn't have the ball can't block, can't tackle, and stuff like that.
Correct.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So you can only play. You can't play the man. You have to play the ball.
That's a from a strategic standpoint, that's a game changer, literally. Because what we're doing a lot of right now, and at least when I've been doing my research into rugby, a lot of the explanations are in terms of American football for us to digest, right? Oh, similar to American football, but then this, you're gonna get to a point where that's not happening anymore. It's just explaining the game of rugby because it's beautiful.
We call it the Rosetta Stone problem, right? You got to teach the language of rugby and the thought process that go behind that. Chris and this relationship with Ballast Point is a part of that, to be honest with you. He loves rugby. He wants to promote rugby, trying to get people to see it and feel it. Sitting here enjoying the Legion Lager is going to make you want to go watch rugby now, right? If nothing else, for the novelty of it. And the more you can get someone to go to a game and see it live, you're going to take the interest. And the other part that's awesome about rugby is people who know rugby love to talk about rugby. So you've got instant educators in all of your stands, right? They'll tell you everything you want to know. They never get mad at you. They're never like, they'll say, here's a scrum and that's a line out. And then they'll go, I don't know why that ref called that call and we don't know. Half the time, by the way, half the time. So.
I think us as players the same. I mean, sometimes the ref would do something and you'd be like, is this guy blind? Unfortunately, not allowed to say that, but there's quite a handful of rules to try and learn. And for instance, as a back, I don't necessarily know all the technical stuff that the forwards need to know. So it's quite an entertaining thing, irrespective of your experience or how long you've been involved as a spectator, coach, or a player. You're always learning something new. I mean, I'm at the end of my career now. It's been 5 years that I've been at the end of my career, but I'm still learning stuff that I didn't know. So it is really something that you can just pick up a conversation in the middle of nowhere about rugby and can continue literally for quite a while.
Well, listen, dude, this beer's gonna keep you here another 5. So it's that good, man. All right, and it's okay. It's all right.
Walker of rugby. He's a man who doesn't have to work out, and he just looks this good. He just goes.
No.
Hey, man, you're a surfing guy, dude. You do a lot of. I've seen, man. Like your Instagram, Joe, is incredible. It's very inspiring. It's sprinkled with a lot of your just lust for the outdoors, but it's also very heavy on your giving back to the wildlife and stuff like that. You're very much about rhino preservation and eco-friendly tourism or safaris and stuff. Just a little bit about that, because I think it's really interesting, because everybody on your team has a story, and your story is unique in this.
Yeah, look, it's basically and I think, again, rugby has been the common denominator through giving me everything that I have in my life. Growing up, the biggest excitement outside of rugby, because that's what you do at school when you're not in class, was having quite an adventurous family. So we'd travel a lot, and majority it would be camping based, safari based, ocean based. So that has been my foundation growing up, is being exposed to these things. And then again, through rugby, having the availability of exposure and a little bit of a soapbox to have an opinion. It has given me the opportunity to get onto things that I really love and really enjoy doing and sharing it with people. And I think that's where the tourism side comes in, but also in a world where miscommunication, fake news, if you can call it that, and also over centralization of everything is kind of promoted, because that's what draws the most likes. In that kind of world, if you can be someone that can give something that's authentic and real and realistic, I think that's something that really excites me. To be quite, I don't mind being the average Joe, as long as it's fairly real. So for me, that's kind of the point of departure. And everything in my life revolves around either rugby or endangered wildlife species protection and tourism and the outdoors. I mean, I'm just someone that really takes advantage of what we have back home. And now that I'm here, exploring what this country has to offer, and literally on our doorstep here in Vegas, there's so much already that we've seen, not knowing what else is around the corner.
There's a lot of wildlife there, man.
There's a lot of wildlife dressed in different coats, but no, it's just privileges that that I really enjoy and I'm really proud of and happy to be involved in.
He's really selling it short, by the way. When we were talking about philosophy, when I got to know Joe, when he came over here, we sat by a fire, we were enjoying a beer, and he sold my wife on this chance to go do his eco-friendly tour in Africa, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of our life to be out there and do it. Joe's the man in all ways. So
Ryan, how has it been for you being able to develop a team full of guys like Joe, guys that are not just specimens, I guess, to use his term, in the athleticism, but also with those big hearts, those philosophies and sentiments to just doing the greater good?
First off, they're not all like Joe. That's what's awesome. You have a really diverse cast of characters, and the fact that this cast comes together and they form a family. It's amazing, like, to be a part of the atmosphere. And I'm on the outside. I mean, they're the heart of it. They're the heart and the soul of what they're creating. We try to provide the opportunity to create this, but our coaches and our players come together and they live together. They eat together. They, do all of these things together. They take adventures. There's some great pictures of them on their traveling, when we had to make our move from San Diego to Vegas this year, just for COVID reasons. They're skateboarding together down this, old abandoned water park, which was cool to see. But this family atmosphere, while creating what I think is an ultra professional and very successful brand, and in team, is the uniqueness of it all. It's
awesome
to be a part of. Occasionally, they let me come in the locker room and do a dance with them, because they all have a song, a team song.
Let's go ahead and get that posted. Go ahead and send that our way, please, on TikTok or whatever.
I'll definitely sneak in a GoPro. But I mean, in latching on to what Ryan said, as players, we've been we've been given a blank canvas, with everything that we need to be in a position to perform as well as have a load of fun. Because I mean, again, not to push the beer thing too hard, but what happens when you put 40 young guys together in the same place over a really long period of time? You are going to find, guys skating together, and if it's backed up by the way our owners and Ryan and Darren have, it's really an easy thing. And then if a game goes well, which up until now we've been very consistent in that regard, it's really nice having everyone from the owners all the way down to the guy who carries the water in the same change room, having a beer, having a sing and dance, where it's a private occasion, but it's also something that you're kind of going to cherish. And that's probably why I still play rugby, because that's what you miss, is the camaraderie, being together. And I think that's what really makes rugby special.
You know what? That sounds amazing, brother. And it hits close to home. Chris, I saw you kind of did the yes. You get that. If you felt it.
Yeah. Well, no, definitely. Once you stop playing, that is something that you miss, definitely, for sure.
Well, we're trying to bring it back for you, Chris, because you're coming to the game this weekend, right?
Definitely. That was one of the things I was going to say is it would be good to let everyone know where and how they can watch the Legion play.
Yeah, definitely.
Part of the all things San Diego and the things that we've created and the energy that we've created with Chris and his group, we have this great relationship with Fox 5. So Fox is going to put our game on from 3 to 5 on Saturday. So come watch us locally. We will be playing in Las Vegas this week, and Las Vegas has been kind enough to host us there. But so for the 3 to 5, you can watch us on TV. So
you'll also be able to watch it at all of our tap rooms, wherever our tap rooms
we'll be streaming. We also have streaming services.
We're going to be able. We're going to be showing the game.
We're going to create all of our watch parties at Ballast Point, and so.
Oh, that's trouble. All right, here we go. Well, you know what? It's not that much trouble because this Legion Lager is so easy drinking, dude. It's perfect. It's one of the most exciting beers that we've released in a long time, and I've been here a while. So I just want to tell you that, Chris, this is a beautiful two-way relationship, but really your passion for the game and the talks that we've had just at the bar about rugby, it's made me a fan like that. I don't think there's any sport that I've just latched onto like in a split second. And it's not necessarily coming from the footage. It's not necessarily coming from the game itself as much as it's coming from the people that love it, like downloading that energy and that passion. So I have nothing but beautiful things to say about what the future of rugby is most likely going to become here in the United States, especially here in San Diego. And I'm so honored to be a part of a relationship with the San Diego Legion.
Well, that's great. But I mean, honestly, thank you for having us on, and thank you to Chris, for taking that first step with us. Because when I started talking about a beer and a concept and all of those things, he kind of looked at me and he scratched his chin and he started thinking about it. And he goes, I like the alliteration. And then we sent him some art and he said, let us take a chance at this. And our art looked nothing like this, by the way. It had the symbol and everything. And he said, let us take a crack at it. And the evolution of this art, I wish, maybe Chris, we could share it online at some point, like how that evolved all the way to the finished can. My hat's off to you guys, what you've created. Thank you.
It's beautiful.
It's having that mad genius, Paul Elder, as part of Ballast Point. He's lived and breathed the look and feel of Ballast Point from 25 years ago. And he loves a challenge or an interest. And his take on a lot of these things is great, how you sort of tie it together, but it's completely different. The skeletons, the only thing that I missed was my wife's a New Zealander and could the guy on the ground have had green shorts on to go with the gold.
I'm sure Paul can whip up some special rendition of this for your wife. It's a awesome piece of artwork. And this year we're 25 years young, right? We're celebrating this complete art campaign inside and outside of the can. This is just art outside of the can as art outside of the can can get. This is amazing. And I'm super happy that it's going on the Legion Lager because I'm
Right.
telling you guys, people are gonna start watching rugby just because they saw this cannon and that looks like a cool move. I wonder if they actually do this in the game. They're gonna watch this game. They're gonna realize how awesome it is to actually sit down and download, because the game is exciting. It's fast paced, and to tell you the truth, I was actually surprised as to how fast I was able to just fall in love with it. And I was just watching Legion games, so that's a testament to the team.
Well, those are the games worth watching. I mean, I say that all joking. I mean, I'm really impressed with the way MLR has gone up, and the truth is that move is played. If you see Sam Wu Ching take the ball up, that's how it's done. You push the guy's head to the ground and you just keep running. So
that's exactly that. And also, I think even your slogan goes along with rugby. Dedicated to the craft.
Right. It is dedicated to the craft, and it goes a lot beyond that. There's much more to that. In your locker rooms over there at the Legion, I'm sure that things stop becoming all about the rules and regulations, and it starts to become a little bit more about the philosophy and how heartfelt you are and the passion behind the game. I'm happy that your go-to beverage is not orange juice and it is beer. And like I said,
that's yes.
Play responsibly. Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. Drink responsibly. Tackle responsibly. Drink out of a boot responsibly. All that stuff. This beer, the official craft beer of the San Diego Legion Lager, is available on tap at Ballast Point locations all season long. People,
and soon to be Trust Restaurant Group. So,
ooh. I don't know. Cool.
Yeah.
Rad. Oh, you know what you guys did? You guys did this big launch party at Trust, right?
Yes, we did. So
I saw footage of that. That looked like fun.
Yeah, so we're gonna start getting some kegs rolled out to those guys here in a week or so.
Well, listen, anybody that's just listening to this podcast, do yourself a favor and go onto our website, go check out the Legion, go do everything rugby, because it's pretty rad. And I can't wait till I get my hands on a jersey.
You should have some in there. If you don't, we'll make sure we'll drop one off to you. But and don't forget to go watch the game. Drink the lager at Ballast Point this weekend. So, can
I say though, real quick, that anybody listening needs to log on to the SD Legion Instagram and check out. You guys did a post with it was like a photo shoot of your players wearing that jersey. It's amazing. It's cool, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, we were really trying to go away from the traditional and push kind of the gladiator spirit this year. So, and with us having to go on the road, I think it's even more so. So it'll make it all that much sweeter when Joe wins a championship.
No pressure there. No, luckily the team bails out the weaker individuals, so I'm always covered. But I think it's quite aptly with our name being Legion. You know, it's kind of like you're living the 300 movie, which is pretty cool.
Well, you guys are built like it, man. Listen, thanks so much, Ryan. Thanks so much, Joe. Thank you so much, Chris, for not only being on the show, but introducing me to a newfound love, a new sport that I think I'm going to be watching very avidly. And hopefully I see you guys in the tap room. Hopefully I see you guys at the game.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Thank you again for having us on.
Thanks for having us.
No, man, the pleasure's all ours. Thank you, guys.
Definitely all ours. Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, guys. That was amazing. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share the rest of our episodes on Ballast Point's YouTube page, channel, whatever. You can follow us on ballastpoint.com, Instagram, Facebook, all that jam. I'll see you next time, and thanks for tuning in.